practices growing trees, herbs, and healing plants. Her goal this year alone is to plant over 2,000 trees, and she's halfway there. Are you halfway there?
Yes.
You've planted 1,000 trees.
2,000.
You've planted 2,000 trees.
This year, yes.
Hey, then you've actually done it then. Najar is also the host and producer of Maa'itu Podcast show, and a fascinating journey into whom we are as African women, and she calls it womb men. The roles of the woman and how to heal our wombs naturally. The podcast is on an alternative healing channel and can be found on all podcast feeds, including Apple Podcast. So ladies, if you want to heal your womb, or you want to even wake your womb up, I think you should try the podcast. My third guest is Margaret Aberdeen. She's a domestic violence warrior, award-winning speaker, author of Priceless Roles of a Mother. She is actually a mother and a grandmother, a very proud grandmother. So I've heard a bit about her grandbaby. Now these three ladies are here so that we talk about domestic violence, and we talk about domestic violence in relation to our parents. What parents can do, what parents should do, what parents should become aware of. Now, in that lane, who wants to go first? I need to ask one of you so that we open the discussion on. Should we constantly be asking what domestic violence is? Is there someone out there who doesn't know what domestic violence is? And if so, does someone want to explain what domestic violence is? Najar.
The word is violent. What does violent mean? It can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be mental, it can be financial. But what it is violence. And yes, we are all women here. And the assumption is that we're talking about domestic violence to the female. Although it is also not, it is possible. It is reality that there is domestic violence which is also meted out against the male. However, on this panel, we are discussing domestic violence against the Black African woman, whether on the continent or abroad in the diaspora. So violence is when there is no peace, there's no harmony, there's no love. There are people who say that love hurts. No, love does not hurt. Love is an emotion which is calm, which is joyful, which is healing. So for me, violence is the opposite of all these. Violence is a space where you are not at peace, whether it is emotionally, physically, or financially. Violence is a space where you are unhappy, where you are not joyful, where there is a lot of what can be called disharmony and rupture. Yes, that's that would be my explanation of violence. Now, violence also includes physical, where the woman is beaten, and beaten includes from any laying on of hands which is unwanted. Can I put it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a slap, a push. What I used to get a lot was this, and then it got worse. So there's always a point where it starts, and then it just, if it's not stopped, it gets worse and worse and worse. So yes, any physical laying on of hands which is not
Welcome.
Yeah, it includes what we usually hear, which is beating, slapping, kicking, pulling hair, physical body harm. Yeah, that's domestic violence.
Thank you, Margaret. So when we talk about domestic violence, you are a warrior on domestic violence. Can you explain that, being a warrior?
Yes, that word warriors. Yes, because I, as a child, grew up in a domestic violence atmosphere where I saw my father countless times, beating my mom, smacking my mom. It was 6 of us. So growing up there, when people say as little children growing up in that environment, oh, they don't understand, etc., that is so incorrect, because really and truly, growing up in that is like the child or the children is being abused. One of my sisters took her life, because the emotions, people don't realize. I mean, I just heard what Sister Najar said, the physical, it heals, but the emotion scars for life. So I'm scarred for life. My sisters, my siblings are scarred for life. So that is the most painful and the most unbearable part of life. I mean, yes, now I am the warrior, I'm an overcomer, I've survived, but still the emotions do happen. It's there, but it's how I choose to deal with it. So when we say violence, it's such a, it's there's so many different sectors, but that emotional side, that trauma that a child goes through growing up in that atmosphere, it is so horrendous. It is extremely painful. And when there is no one there to share that pain, what happens to that child? There is so many things we have to go really deep down into that core to understand the roots of violence. And it is a crime. Domestic violence is a crime, as we become aware of now. And in that time when I was growing up, it was like the neighbors, no cousin will get involved with these things. We couldn't turn to anyone because everything is happened behind closed doors. Mind your business. It's nothing to do with, these are the things was thrown around at that time. So as a child, it was really, really very painful. I mean, I sort of like fled home in my teenage years while I was living in New York because I could not stand it anymore. I felt I would have killed my father as I was growing up to defend my mother. And this is another thing a lot of us don't realize. When that child is there, have no one to turn to, no one to cry, no one to lean on. The pain is so painful. I've experienced that. And I saw, as I said, one of my sisters, what happened to my sister. So yes, that's why I call myself a warrior, because I now, how I can speak the way I'm speaking right now. A lot of people who have gone through that, they feel so embarrassed, so shame, such a guilt, blame, it's all these sort of things. But no, my voice needs to be heard, my pain needs to be heard for others to realize they're not alone. And that's why I have this passion, this ever-ready passion to speak out. And I want others to realize, no, it's not your fault. There's nothing to blame. So I can go on, but I will stop because I want others to really share their part. But mine are very deep, very passionate, and very ever ready to reach out there to so many and say no. And another thing, before I close on, we look at the victims, the people, the women who goes through these domestic violence, and we say they're weak and things, but those women are very strong to stay there, to really, some stay there for their family, for their children. But I look at my mother. My mother was very strong woman to put up with my father, six of us, trying to keep us together. So we are strong when we go through this, but it's how we rise from it. That is the situation. How we rise, and very strong. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. I don't even know what to say. This is so sad. Anyway, Naa Amerley, I don't know from which angle that because as you are speaking from the mother's point of view, as a mother, as Sister Margaret just told us, mothers are the strong ones, the ones who are being beaten at home, who are trying to keep home and children together. They are still trying to. I know a woman who they beat her, she comes out, she's smiling at the children and making them think, oh, it's okay, it's just daddy being upset. What is your view on that?
Well, yes, keeping that smiling face for the child or the children.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing. But really and truly, as I said before, the children hear the noises, they can see the bruises, etc. I've seen that. But try and keep in that sort of, image that it's okay and he's just upset, because in that time a lot of women felt like, and they still do, a lot of women feel like, wow, yes, the man is the head of the house, etc. And I think how things has been interpreted, that the man is the, that one to keep everything. So the woman stays there trying to keep that security for the child or children. So that sort of face that they put on there is a mask, just like we have this mask on for the COVID-19, for the virus. They put a mask on to trying to say they protect the child. But really and truly, it is horrendous. That child does feel it. They do feel it, or the children does feel it. So it is something that is just a face they put on, that image, but not realizing how that child is being affected by that. So
now, what's your view?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's tricky. I try and look at things really balanced because a lot is going on, and I am a firm believer in cause and effect. So what we've heard so far is, we, the mother, talking about our sisters, women who are violated, beaten up or aggressed, whether it's physically, financially, the examples that Sister Najar gave. And what they were saying, and Sister Margaret was saying in terms of this notion about being strong, not a notion, her personal experience, the mother's very strong, the women who stay, that's a very tricky or sensitive position, because when people don't understand how women, first of all, not many people understand how we as women get into those situations in the first place. And it's very easy, and I've heard on a number of occasions, and it can be very triggering when people not understanding how women can get themselves into that situation, they can arrive in that situation. The comments can be, well, why doesn't she just leave? Why is she still there? Isn't it so obvious? If she's so unhappy, if it's so bad, why doesn't she leave? And on the outside, of course, logically, rationally, it makes sense. You're in a situation where you're being harmed, you're unhappy at at the minimal level, why don't you just leave? People have no idea how many things are going through that woman's head. She's not only thinking about herself, she's thinking about her children. Some of them are thinking about the fact that they literally have nowhere else to go. And they're thinking, if I leave, do I really want to leave and be on the streets with my children? They don't actually see that as a better option than staying under the house. And for me, the idea or the strength that we have is a blessing and a curse, because that strength is sometimes the reason why we can stay. And it's like, well, we're just going to get through this. That resilience, we will stay, and we will weather the storm for the sake of the children. That decision is personal. When we get asked questions, and people, let me speak about me personally. If people were to ask me questions, I don't know when I change this perspective, but let's just say that now if people ask me questions, oh, what would you do? Or in this situation, what will happen? Now I always say, I would like to think that I would do A, B, and C. Because I defy, as much as we can be so confident about things, no, I wouldn't do this, that's unacceptable, that's ridiculous. You do not know what a person is capable of until they are in a given situation. So for that individual in those circumstances, that's her position. Some people have been in that situation. Some women have been in that situation for many years, and that was their decision, and they realized or maybe achieved. They knew what their purpose was. We have the sad stories, the tragic stories where the women don't make it. And what I'm saying is, there's not necessarily a one size fits all. There is the situation that they should be out. They should be out of there. I really challenge the view that and the simplicity of when a woman is in that situation, oh, she should just get out. Because I've been in situations where I've facilitated sisters of actually leaving the husband, and then the woman goes back. So the thing that you're actually helping to do is far greater than you even imagine. It is in the, like Sister Margaret was saying, the emotions are everything. So I think there are many different ways that we need to look at this. And it's not just a case of, yep, do A, B, C, and everything is fine. That's my personal perspective.
Okay, so basically, it's an emotional situation. Okay, Sister Najar.
There's just something which I wanted to, which crossed my mind when Sister Naa was speaking, regarding why it is sometimes difficult for a woman to leave. When it comes to severe domestic violence and domestic abuse, we need to remember one thing, that the perpetrator is what we today call a narcissist. Now, this is a very new word. It's a new term where we did not understand it before. And most narcissists have very good control of themselves. And they present an image to the world. And this image is very soft, very gentleman, very nice, very kind. Okay? When the woman, let's say for example myself, let me now use myself as an example. When she first starts to notice that things are not adding up, she's a little bit confused. And by the time she starts realizing that 2 + 2 is not making 4, she will approach somebody. And she'll say, you know what? There's something wrong here. And the answer is always, oh, are you talking about so and so? No, that's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Are we together now?
Mm-hmm.
So this woman, and most of the time, these are our young daughters. Now we said we're going to talk about parents. We're
Yes,
talking to the parents.
Yes.
So we're talking about a young wife, okay?
Mhm.
And let us say that this young wife is in her 20s. So she realizes in her 20s, oh, this person is not whom I thought he was, because he's doing this, but he's saying this. And I'm living with this person and I'm seeing this. So she comes out and she tells somebody. It could be her mom, it could be her dad, it could be her sister, it could be somebody in her religious institution, whatever it is. And what normally happens is I don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes back home, and now she's in doubt. Because she's like, I just said that this person is doing like this, and I'm not being believed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the breakdown starts. And this girl goes back home and she sits over there and she's like, oh my gosh, my best friend or my mom or my church or my whoever doesn't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm stuck. Because whatever she says from that point onwards, who is believed? It's the bully. And therefore, she goes into this space where, even with her children, it becomes very difficult to tell them what is happening. Because everybody believes who? Everybody believes the narcissist. And this is the point where we as mothers, we as the older women, need to sit down and listen to our daughters. If your daughter comes up and tells you, if your niece comes up and tells you, somebody from the church comes up and tells you, listen, this man is doing this, believe her. Believe her. Listen to her story, because this is what happens when we let them tell the story and say, okay, we believe you. She goes back and she says, okay, now I know one person at least believes me, so I'm not going mad. And from that point on, she is now able to make a decision for herself, because she knows she has the backing of just one other person who believes in her. But if we tell her, oh no, he's such a nice man, that's wrong. No, he's done so much for you. He's whatever. He's taken you out of poverty, maybe. Or he's done this, or he's done. No. Believe her. Believe her. Just listen to her. Believe her. Let her tell her story.
From what you've said, it looks like society itself is the culprit.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we look at the whole thing and a man beats a woman and all. He does it because he can get away with it.
That's right.
In his society, there are situations where an in-law will say, this man is not checking his wife at all. And when I say this is African parlance for allowing the wife to do what she wants, you know, the man must check her, which means he must smack her or make her see that he's the man. A lot of the time, domestic violence is about control. And so that is one of the things that the man must check the woman. The man must put her in line. He must make her know her position. What position is that? You see, and I think Najar has said it in a nutshell, that basically it is our societies in Africa especially. And this, you know, one interesting thing I've discovered also is that a lot of the time, some of the things that we do in Africa that we may have even forgotten about, people bring it into the diaspora and hold on to it. So some of the culture, some of the bad habits, some of the crazy things that they say, oh, this is tradition, etc. No one is doing it in Africa. The African man is doing it in the diaspora. And that is one of the reasons why this must stop. Society must look at it and say, this is not a tradition. This is not a culture. I know old men who were kind to their wives. I know men who've been good to their wives. And they, you know, I know children who come from happy homes. So why is it that a man feels that it is a badge of honor to smack his wife or to warn her, like, be careful, don't you say this again or you will see? I don't understand it. If you say it to me, I'll say it again. I'll say the thing you say I shouldn't say, I'll say it. I mean, just look, I will see. What will I see? Yeah? But the problem, though, the biggest problem we have is most of the time, men marry women they're bigger than. Very few men marry women that they are same size. A man will always marry, especially the African man, will marry this little woman, and just so that he can put his weight on her, beat her, or do all these things. It's nonsense. Now, society is behind them. And how do we, how do we do this? You know, if you went to your mother, say, I know what you're saying, that you help someone, you bring them out of the marriage and all of that, and then they go back. They go back because the narcissist in the man goes to the woman and says, oh, in fact, you see, it's your fault. Because you said this to me, and because you did it, and I told you not to do it, and you did it, you see, and then accidentally I went crazy and beat you, but I will never do that again. It happens. They do it, and he will do it again. And one day, he may hit you, and your head will hit something else, and you will die. What then have you gained? We all have children, and we are all trying to stay alive, to be covering our children, to have fun with our children, to watch them grow, finish university. So you stay in that house, and the man kills you. What have you gained? So again, I ask you, power to the mother's foundation. You think that they will go back, but there has to be another way. We need to talk about this today. Tell me something else. I've heard what you said. I've understood it. But I've given you instances and examples of a situation that is untenable. How do we get out of it? I'm not saying go to someone's house and bring her out of the house and divorce the man. I'm not saying that, but there has to be a system. As a mother, your daughter comes up to you and says, my husband is beating me, threatening me, he pushed my head. Your daughter comes, she has a black eye. What would you do?
Me,
Yes.
I would ask her. I would ask her about it. What Sister Najar is saying is that when someone tells you something, believe them, means don't make assumptions. Ask the person questions. Ask
No.
her what is her side of the story. I think oftentimes
No.
we don't even listen. We don't
No.
listen because we're
No.
thinking.
No. No, I'm sorry, but I'm asking you again. I'm not saying you are wrong, but I'm asking you again. The woman she has told you, she comes to you with a black eye. She tells you that she cooked bean stew. The guy comes home. He said he didn't want bean stew. She said she doesn't have anything else, but I will make something for you tomorrow. And he hits her, he beats her. The children are there, everyone is there, and she's upset. So she comes to you, her mother. She's told you. What more do you want to hear? What?
I want no. That one we disagree. I want to hear her. Somebody, because when I hear her, then I can say, well, of course, I don't, this is terrible. Let me hold you. But for me, that maybe that's how I deal with, because it's the same thing that I do with my boys. I want to hear her. She's been through something. So that's the first thing that I'll do. It will be like, my goodness, tell me. This is not tell me so I can work out whether you're lying or you're telling the truth. I don't know if that's where you're coming from. That's not how I operate. I will hear her, because for her to, especially imagine if it's the first time that she's come to me, I want to say, oh, my daughter, what happened? Okay, he beat you. Okay, so from then I have to call the boys. I have to call the men to handle that, if that's what you want to hear. But first, I don't care who it is. I will listen to the person, whether it's my daughter, whether it's a stranger. That's the way that I operate, because that person has been through something, and something like that, I suspect who else has actually listened to what she has been through. So I would hear her first.
Sister Margaret.
Could you just repeat that question again? I think that's the most, because I'm listening. Could you repeat that question? What are you asking for?
Sister Najar explained, and the nutshell of her explanation was society actually is the cause of the situation, because, and I gave an example after understanding what Sister Najar is saying. She says, when the person comes to you and tells you that this is the situation, believe her. Because if you do not believe her, she will not come back again. And it is through that people get killed, people get maimed, situations occur. Now, I gave an example as well, that she comes to you, she's got a black eye, she's got cuts or whatever is happening to her, and she says to you, so my husband beat me. You ask her, why? She says, I cooked beans stew. He came from work, he did not want to eat, and he eats bean stew though. But on that day, that is not what he wanted to eat. This is just a simple, example.
Okay.
And so she said, I'm sorry, I will cook something else tomorrow. Why don't you eat this now? And tomorrow when you come, I'll make some jollof. He went into a wild frenzy. He beat her, pushed her in front of her children. As a mother, this is your daughter. What would you say? That is the same question I asked Sister Now.
Yes. Well, just as Sister Now said, yes, I would listen to her. And how would I go? Would I sort of, I would say, well, perhaps have a discussion, being in the center and have a discussion with the man and the woman, the couple. That's how, become like the referee, the carer, and listen. Although, from my experience, I would say, listen. Yeah, I'm listening to my daughter. She's my daughter. She has a relationship with this man who came and said, beat her, smack her, or whatever. And I would become, a referee, go and listen to why that happened. And if it's a continuous thing, then yes, I will, how would I say it? I will, see, this is it. It's a very difficult question in a way to come and say directly or leave him, etc. Because just remember, they have children, etc. I mean, this is it, directly to say leave him without one smack or whatever. If it's the first time, would you say that's the first smack he hit her? Or
no, this is the 10th smack.
Okay.
And
well,
this time, her head is swollen. She's got a black eye. Because you see, we're not talking about, and in fact, the first smack shouldn't even happen. But
that's right.
It has happened. And it is the 10th one. So we're on the level of, for example, your mom examples that you gave. We're on the examples that Najar gave. And Najar has said it. She said it, clear and plain. The man beats the woman. She goes to her parents. They say, well, think of the children. Go back. Come on. Be brave. And what did you do? Sometimes they say, what did you do? You must behave. You should be able to stay in this marriage. He's very nice. Maybe he didn't mean to beat you, even this 10th occasion.
Okay, well, now that is becoming quite clear, and you said it's the 10th one. Yes, I would not allow her to go. I mean, I would not let, I would say, we have to do something now to separate that. If that's a continuous sort of thing, then yes, I would try my best and see how I can help her get out of that situation. Because if it's something that's repetitive, because from when you were talking earlier, I thought perhaps it's once, and this is why I say, well, perhaps just go and be like that refuge and listen to both parties. But now if it's a continuous thing, obviously, yes. The reason why I can say this, because I myself have experienced that. And when Sister Najar was talking about, I myself had the experience of a Prince Charming to a Prince Harming. And when he took me to his country, he was here, he met me in my queendom, in my own property, when I was very ill. I may have seen the red flag, but because of that vulnerability, I passed it up. But once he got me to his country, his kingdom, I saw the real person. I saw the Prince Harming. That's what I saw. I saw the Prince Harming. So just as Sister Najar said, and you, Sister Kathy, yes, the man, he comes out in such a, very religious, very caring, etc.
Yes.
But then you see that mask, you can see that different person. And when I spoke out, while I was over there, I was 30 weeks pregnant, and I spoke out on his territory. Smack! I got a smack on my face.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? So this is something I know from my experience, what does happen. And that smack woke me up because I smacked him back. It was more like seeing my father smack my mother as a child and how I tried to defend my mother. So obviously when he did that to me, and I'm pregnant in a strange country, I smacked him back. And then, yes, he treated me whatever he did, but I kept my mouth shut. I ended up in hospital, almost died. And that's when my second son died. So I do understand this different face mask, Prince Charming, religious, really attentive, really warm in this, but you will see something hideous when he becomes Prince Harming. And that's what I would call it. So if it's something that is continuous, yes, I will try my best to get my daughter out of that situation. I would listen to her attentively and really see if there is some way I can help. I would stand by her side with dignity and pride. That's what I will do.
I haven't got a daughter. And maybe because I haven't got a daughter, I will speak and people will say that I am flippant, because I will rush over there and I will beat him in the same way.
Sorry.
No, you see, I'll tell you what. One of the problems that we have is, for example, someone I know is married to this man. Now, the man is very outwardly, to all of us, he was a nice, pleasant man. Mm-hmm. When the problem started, and she said, and you see, people are not aware that when women marry or are in a very serious relationship with a man and they've been together for a few years, they have children, it's because they courted and she saw the good side of him. Because you can't meet a man and he's beating you and then you marry him and have children. That one is total madness. But the majority of women I know, they meet a man, everything is fine. But you see, money trouble. When trouble don't come, that's when trouble comes. You understand?
Yes.
Because
yes.
that is when maybe they've had a baby and they're having to stretch. They have to buy a nappy, blah, blah, blah. They have to do this, they have to do that. Or, in fact, outside forces, in-laws come in. Mother-in-law is in, sister-in-law, everybody mouth is inside. Now, if this man is not strong enough.
And also there's one other thing which usually happens, which we don't tell our daughters and we don't tell our sons. And this happens after birth of the first child. And there's supposed to be a time when the mom is not supposed to have sex. And in fact, we don't even feel like we want sex. I mean, we've just gone through this birthing thing. We're so excited about our baby. We're getting the hang of, oh, how am I supposed to feed the baby? Probably not sleeping how I used to sleep before because of the baby and all that. I've changed my diet. My hormones are also all over the place.
Yes.
And there's a new baby to take care of. And in all that, there really isn't time for sex. And that is when the man, because he's never been taught this, and because we don't teach this to our sons, and because our husbands don't teach this to their sons, or our husbands were not taught this by their fathers. Okay? So 3 weeks in, the man is like, hey, excuse me, I want like the before, like you can have however many hours it was, and the woman is exhausted. And this brings tension, much tension, because the man now starts going back into this belief that my wife's body belongs to me sexually. And he says he demands it. And the mosque says so, whatever it is, they all say so, that when I want sex, you gotta give it to me, baby. And she is exhausted. She's practically crying. I know you all remember your first baby. Practically crying. You don't even know what's going on. The emotions and the hormones are all over the place. And then this guy, he wants, what's this? And that begins a whole other, it begins a whole other series of tension that Auntie Kiki is talking about, where everybody's thinking that this is a nice couple. They just had a baby, look at them, the baby's so cute, and everybody's smiling and everybody's excited. And behind the scenes at home, it's not quite the same. And sometimes the men even start saying like, she's lazy, she's not giving it to me. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go and look for another woman? What's wrong with you? Am I no longer attractive? Why do you want me? Do you have somebody on the side because you don't want me? etc, etc, etc. These are things that we we need to teach the young couples, we really need to teach them that the woman's body is not a sex organ, especially for some months after birth.
Could I just say something? And there's a lot of jealousy also, because I've experienced that as a mother. Once say like there's a couple together doing everything together, when the child comes into, visible, there's jealousy there, and how, yes, the man turns another woman, etc. And even to, we call that's forced sex. It's like rape, that falls under the umbrella of rape. But sometimes people don't look at it because, that's my husband, that's my partner. And that's not like, it's normal. It's okay to have sex. But in the way it is rape, you're raping the woman. That's forced sex. The reason why I can speak that I've undergone it after having a cesarean. So yes. Yeah. I've had it, that happened to me. So what you're saying there is so powerful for people to become aware. These things need to be taught, need to become alive, because a lot of people don't know. And we assume and have all these expectations of the happy family. But there's so many things that we need to bring alive to really help people to become aware, especially these young girls now growing up in this generation. We really have to open their eyes. That's what I thought.
I agree with everything you're saying. And it all brings it back to, if you are the mother, you're the parent, your daughter comes to you. She says, I'm going through all of this. We've had a baby. He's insisting on sex. If I say no, he slaps me. If he's even threatening to go outside and get a woman. He wants to do, what do you say? Are you going to say, oh, explain it to me further? I wouldn't do that. I can't do that.
No, I wouldn't.
I don't want any more explanation. I want to go and slap the man.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. And slap some sense into him.
There we go, contradicting ourselves.
Absolutely. We all have different ways of doing things. And the reason why I say I listen to the woman, because yes, she's coming to you. This has happened. I would still ask her. It depends how protective you get, because I would still ask her, because she's telling me this stuff, what does she want? I would ask. I may have very, very strong views about what am I going to do. She's my daughter. She is still an adult. So I respect what she said. And I have to think, okay, how are we going to manage this? Because like I said, I could roll up my sleeves, go and have somebody deal with the man. And then she goes through a period where maybe she has remorse. And now she wants to go back. That I don't want to happen. That's why I want to find out exactly what's going on with her. It's not to get justification as to, oh, well, is she telling me the truth? I think it's important.
I have started saying to all the young girls that I know that it is very important that you look at marriage as a partnership. It is very important that you share the job, you share the money, you share. It is very important that he understands you and he feels compassion for you and you feel the same for him. Do not marry out of duty. Do not marry out of now. If I have said all these things to her and then she comes to me and says, well, but he still knocks me once in a while. He gets upset and he can't control himself. Look, I will have to go and rent a place for her. I will have to speak to her seriously and tell her that this is not the man for you. If she has 5 children, there still is not the man for her. She will have to stand on her own 2 feet. He and her both had the education. Of course, it is a man's world, and therefore, the man is going to earn more than her. But she needs help. Community has to help her. Rather than to say you went and married and you couldn't make it. Shame on you. No! We, the women, have to start to open our eyes and look to help. If she doesn't have, look, I know people, including myself, who in the beginning of the divorce, which I was quite happy to have, it was a struggle. I had to start counting my pennies. I had to start doing all sorts of things. I did them all. Funnily enough, it was like a huge hill that I had to travel. And every milestone was a celebration. Because, yay, I've done it. Oh my God, I've done it. And this is how I did it. Now that I had an army, though, I always have an army. And this is why I say, this is why we did this show today. Look, regardless of what we think, regardless of whether she is going to go back, we have to help her in such a way that she does not feel helpless or vulnerable and want to go back. Do you understand that?
Agree.
The discussion will be had. You yourself can see if you are a grown woman and you've been married before or you are still in a marriage. You can tell the marriage that the girl is being beaten up. You can tell the marriage where the girl is being bullied, controlled, the man is entitled, he's selfish. You can tell after a while, however much the guy beguiles you, the mother-in-law or the auntie or whoever. After a while, you will know that the man has a sweet mouth. Mouth is sweet. He says things, but this man, we've got to watch him. And so this is it. If we have gone through all of this and come out on the other side, I am not going to waste time. I'm going to call my army and I'm going to say, please, my niece needs help. I do have nieces. I have so many. In fact, one of them just broke up with her boyfriend and she was, whispering it to my son. I didn't say anything. So the next day I asked her, so where is that boy? She said, oh, well, we broke up. I said, good. Now you open your eye and look proper. That's how we do it. It's not a big deal. And we have to, because there was a time when the man was the breadwinner and he was looking after the wife and the children and he was controlling things. That is not the situation anymore. One man's salary cannot look after a woman and one child. He can't do it if he wants to live just an average life. He can't do it. They have to eat, they have to dress, they have to wear shoes. In fact, over here in England, they even have to wear coats because it's cold. They have to wear socks, boots, the whole lot. So it has to be two people. And if that two people is not going to work, look, your home is your fortress. Your home is the last bastion. There is nowhere else to go. So if you are in a marriage where now you're afraid to go home because when you get home, and then of course if you waste time outside too, you are late. And yet you are coming home too, you can't come. Then what are you doing? I will not wait for any more explanation. I will have to call people to help me help you. And I think the minute we start to change our mindset and start to call people to help you to help someone, as Najar said, that is the way forward. It's the way forward. There are men out there, and I'll say this, that there are men out there who do not beat the woman, but he will mentally disarm you, confuse you, and weaken your resolve, that you will come out a weak, gibbering, I don't know what word to put at the end of that state. And you all know, a woman will begin to doubt herself. That is not unacceptable. I was not supposed to be talking so much on this show because I was calling you people to ask you what we're going to do. But truthfully,
I wanted to just add to what you said about that's it, that the mindset. The one thing we haven't spoken about, and that is one of the most important things. So in all the things that you want to do, yes, call in the army and look at the different things that the army can do. The thing that you can't do for your daughter is change the way that she thinks and how she feels. So then you need people also to be there to rehabilitate her, because half the time there's so much conditioning thoughts and things, like Najar said, you said, the doubt, the self-esteem that's hit the floor, you know, the thinking, is she crazy, is she not crazy, what happened to me, you know, all of this stuff. And I remember you said something to me offline, I think still here is relevant, except that if there are women who are in very dangerous, very high level, I don't know how to categorize it, abusive relationship, in terms of, you know, the lead-in time for them to leave, if they're going to leave. I was able to leave my marriage because a year beforehand, without knowing kind of what I was doing, I had got into coaching. I started to learn what it was that, because I wasn't happy. And I fortunately, I wasn't in a long-term, you know, relationship that was full of abuse. There were encounters, but of course, once too much, isn't it? But I had that for a whole year. And actually, even that learning created tension, because now I was starting to gain confidence. I was starting to learn who I am, what I wanted to do. Even that didn't go down well. But that is the thing, that when push came to shove and there was the final assault, if I can call it like that, I left and I didn't look, because by then I understood why I got into the relationship. I understood a bit more about where I had, you know, why I was depressed or whatever it was, why I got into the situation we can. So if we're dealing with our daughters and we call in the entourage and we want to remove them for a situation, we can't forget that piece. We haven't talked about the therapy, the counseling. That is equally important, that we don't often talk about that, because it's like, oh, just get on with it. But we need to address that as well.
Yeah.
Our time is up. We haven't even talked about therapy, and our time is up. Next week, we have Sister Shirley. All three of you can come back, so that if you have techniques on how, next week is techniques on how to rebuild a broken woman, to rebuild a woman who thinks that she has no other option anymore. And you can see how broken she is. You can see that she needs your help. How are we going to help this woman? Look, we need to help each other continuously. It's like the way they say, pray without ceasing. It's the same thing. Help without ceasing. Help, help, help. Keep helping. Something good is going to come out of it. We women are the most downtrodden, donkeyfied, maltreated, misunderstood, used, and spat out all the time, in different degrees, of course. We have to fight back. Thank you so much, people, for coming on this show. You have made the show so exciting and interesting that
Thank you so much for having us.
I am so happy that you are here. Margaret,
Thank you.
the Dean has created a program to help women break free from domestic violence forever. We are going to talk about it next week.
Okay.
Margaret is going to come on next week. We will be building and rebuilding women. And then the week after that, she's going to tell us her proper story. My people, I don't know how much to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely. Namaste.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You stay, though. Stay.